This solutions video is on setup time for the first entity in a batch. Now, the built-in setup functionality within Process Simulator is for different entities. We can set a location to have a different setup every time a new entity comes through the model. But what if we only have one entity and we want to set up a setup time for the first entity of a batch? Say we want batches of 10 and each batch requires a setup. We can do so. It will require a variable and some processing logic. So the variable we're going to set up here in the advanced elements. It's already set up. The whole model actually is already set up. I'm simply going to be walking you through it. It's available on the Solutions Cafe in the knowledge base of Process Simulator titled Setup Time for First Entity in Batch. There are links in the description and you log in with your information. So again, we've already set it up, but what it is, we have one variable named vCount. It's an integer, initial value 0. That's very important, and it is a time weighted for statistical reasons. So once we have that set up, we go into our properties of our activity. Now here in the activity 1, we're going to batch. Now batch sizes are going to be 10. So we're going to batch after the activity and set our batch size to 10. Now we also need an out buffer that is at least as big as our batch size. So an out buffer of 10 with our batch size of 10 works perfectly. So once we have that set up, we go in and type in our logic. So the logic we're going to type in, the first thing, we're going to increment our vCount. So before we do anything, we're going to increment the variable, and then depending on what it's incremented to, we're going to do a couple things. If it's the first entity of a batch, we are going to require a 15-minute setup time. So if vCount equals 1, we're going to wait 15 minutes. If it's anything other than 1, it's going to move on. Now, if it's the last entity in a batch, it's going to process through and reset the variable to 0. That way, the next time, it's going to increment it to 1, and it's going to require that setup time. Now, after it goes through this and decides if it's the first or the last one, it's going to wait the normal processing time. So it's all laid out, and that way, each batch of 10 is going to require a 15-minute startup time.